Michelle, are you ready?
I was born ready.
She's an award-winning author, speaker, and podcast host who serves on the National Faith Advisory Council. She supported Donald J. Trump for president before it was cool. From her she shed in her beautiful backyard, this is the Michelle Moore Show.
Hi, everybody. Okay, we're going to skip the regular opening song. We've got Chris and Nathan with us today from the Religion Business, the Docu-series. It's got 7 parts. We're going to have them with us. Nathan is traveling, so he's got 45 minutes, so we're going to get right into it. Before we bring them on the show, though, I want you to see the trailer for the Docu-series, so here we go.
Pastor Mac, we're going to walk in 5, 4, 3, 2, walk.
Let's sing of the goodness of God. God, we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to worship you this morning.
You reap excellence if you sow effort, but you have to sow in order to reap. Have you been sowing in good deeds? Have you been sowing in repentance? Have you been sowing in faith? Have you been sowing in Bible reading and prayer? Have you been sowing so you can reap the grace and the mercy of God? Or have you been sowing things for your own lust and your own pleasures?
When I give to God, I am simply taking my hands off that which already belongs to Him.
Oh, Mr. Jones was a Bible-toting woman, made me pray at night. Taught me of the Lord, said, baby, don't you worry, you'll turn out right. But the world got meaner after granny died. Got me crying on my knees, trying to find a light. Walked into the church, saw the devil dancing in the pews. Don't make no sense, I'm a second from a breakdown.
God has to be first in your finances.
It's wrong to criticize leaders of the church, even if the criticism is true.
Don't make no sense, baby. I'm a second from a breakdown.
Inurements. That's a fun one. I don't choose my targets.
It's not a matter of resources. It's a matter of faith.
Trying to be a voice of reason, but I can't find the truth. Ha! Yeah, the world got me now after granny died. Got me crying on my knees, trying to find a light. Walked into the church, saw the devil dancing in the pew, singing out, yeah, don't make no sense. I'm a second from a breakdown.
Tithing becomes a precious privilege. Tithing will keep your name enrolled among the people of God and protect you in the day of vengeance and burning.
May Jesus Christ use me as his cloth.
I have some questions about their financials, and I feel if I give them money, I just should be able to ask questions without feeling threatened or turned away.
People crying and dying, knowing it's coming. The Bible says that God will supply that need according.
And your heart and my heart hunger for relationships.
When we pray to survive, endure, make it through, that's a sick prayer.
Hello? Isn't that like the definition of inurement?
You are what I call a kiddie pool Christian.
People come to church at their most vulnerable, point. And all the money that's funding all this bull is given by these vulnerable people. And then there's these other people playing chess with their money.
And such a good trailer. Okay, so I saw it on the Rumble channel in the chat, the live chat. Jay Ruff saying, so excited for this. Love the documentary series. 1 episode left to go. Fantastic. So eye-opening. I want to ask everybody, if you've got a social media account, I don't normally ask you to do this, but I want to ask you to share this today. I think that this docu-series is so important. I have already watched 5 of them. I've got 2 more to go. And I have to say, I agree with Jay Ruff. It is very good. It's fantastic and eye-opening and gives you some details that, at least for me personally, I didn't know. Let's go on ahead and bring in Nathan Apffel. He is the director and the producer. And then Chris Ayoub, and he is the executive producer. Hi, Chris. Hi, Nathan.
Hey, how are you, Michelle? Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for being here, guys. Okay, I want to go on ahead and get started. I know we're on a little bit of a time crunch. Okay, so I have watched 5 of the 7 parts of the series so far. It was just completely amazing. So well done. I want to tell you that. The first thing and I took 10 pages of notes, by the way.
Wow.
So I want to go through some of my notes. I've been on the phone this morning, producer Ron, Steve Jarvis. I've talked to people already about some of the things that I've been learning through this docu-series with you guys, details that you all have filled in that I didn't know. The first thing is at the very beginning of episode 1, there's a pastor that says tithing is a test. God is testing your heart. He gave his son, and you want to argue about 10%? I thought that was interesting. And then there was another one that says, God gave me a Ferrari because I am a Ferrari. That's amazing. That's interesting.
The first one was Gateway's pastor, Robert Morris, who's been in the news quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the second one had Nate arrested.
Oh, that's the one. Okay, interesting. So he's a Ferrari and Nate needs to be arrested. I got it. The first thing I wanted to touch base with you on is what led you. I remember as I was watching this, some questions came to me. So the first thing that I wrote down was, what led you to take on a 7-part docuseries? Did it start out that way? Nate, if you would please kind of fill us in on how this started out, and did you know it was going to be 7 parts?
Yeah, Michelle, thanks so much for having us on, and I apologize for any background noise. I'm sitting in the airport. But no, we started the show. I bought the domain 15 years ago. And so, I was raised in mega churches in Los Angeles and Southern California, and I made documentaries. So I would make, 30-minute, 44-minute TV shows, and that was kind of my wheelhouse. And so 12 years ago, I filmed the whole show, and we were in edit, and we put together a 90-minute documentary, but I didn't like the way it felt. I always tell people it was like me standing in front of a cinder block wall, just screaming at the wall. I was young and just kind of angry, for lack of a better term. And so I kind of shelved that, got back into filmmaking and commercials. And it wasn't until I had my daughter that I really decided to take this back on. And the reason why is because I wanted to take her back to church. And I just couldn't take her back to church in good conscience without first telling this story. And so this one in particular has been 4 years of filming. And 15 years of research is kind of what led me to this. But yeah, I originally still thought when I started filming 4 years ago, I thought it was going to be a 90-minute documentary. But as I uncovered, especially as I sat down with people like Phil Hackney, Phil, oversaw the nonprofit sector at the IRS, and these interviews would go 6 and 7 hours. And I'm just like, there's no way I could put this many genius minds into a 90-minute show. It just, the story was so much bigger. And so as of now, it's a 7-part docuseries. We are working on future episodes, but Chris and I always say we have to give people milk before we can give them meat, just because the subject matter is so intense.
It's
and
so
this,
good.
yeah, so this first, I would say serendipitously, the show came out to 7 episodes. This initial show came out to 7 episodes.
Yeah, very impressed with how it intertwines too. Very well done. What kind of, well, let me go on. So one of the other things that I noticed was the Kingdom Builder Summit. So this is when my eyebrow got raised on episode 1 still. You're talking about the Kingdom Builder Summit. This actually happened in March 2025. You show up, and I asked you this morning, I said, well, how did they recognize you? What was going on? So you show up in the documentary. People get to see this in episode 1. where they want you to leave. Like they're talking about a guy named Lee. I guess is Lee running the Kingdom Builders Summit. Who
Correct.
is
Yeah,
Lee, and how did they know who you were?
Yeah, that's his nonprofit. And one thing that we talk about in the show is I don't choose my targets, so to speak. And so I was actually driving to Colorado to film an interview with a gentleman named Victor Marks, and a friend of mine through the show, through our Instagram, just hit me up and he's like, "Hey, you're right next to Kingdom Builders Summit. You should go check it out." And so that night I was like, okay, with my camera operator, Steve, I was like, let's go. And so we just made a slight detour and we ended up at the Ritz-Carlton. And I didn't expect them to know who I was, just because the show hadn't released yet. But I just wanted to check them out. And, I try to be as respectful as possible. So I just had two questions. One, are your churchgoers paying for you to be here? Because you have a week at the Ritz-Carlton for really 3 hours of work. So is this vacation being paid for by donors? And then two, what is the church? That was the only question I wanted to pose. And I walked through the doors of the Ritz-Carlton, and we'd been in the car for like 3 hours, so I needed to use the restroom. And I walked directly to the restroom, and a gentleman walking out sees me, and just like his face just goes white. And he just starts literally like speed walking away, almost running. And my camera operator just starts laughing, and he's like, did he recognize you? And I'm like, I think so. So the only way these guys would have recognized me was from our social media at the time, which is a pretty big channel. And come to find out, a lot of these pastors, especially the big ones, who I would say are bending the legal rules, most of them have photos of me up in their security offices, of kind of like a don't let on the church premises. So that's how I assume I'm known in these communities, is just as I was called a what did they call me, Chris?
Anti-religious extremist.
Well, they called me that, but that gentleman in particular, a fascist. He goes, that's that fascist who has problems with people's wealth. And I find it so funny because I have no problem with wealth, but I'm like, it's called sword gain. It's how do you accumulate that wealth, and then what do you do with it? And so instead of allowing me to ask a question, they just have security kick me out, and they scream that I'm a fascist as they're removing me from property.
Yeah. Okay. So another thing though that I took away from it that I really enjoyed and appreciate is the fact that you are putting in this docu-series a big kind of spotlight on the fact that the church is collecting money, and is the money going toward what the parishioners, what the members are thinking that it's going toward. And so, even in that situation where you're at the Ritz-Carlton, one of the things that you note on the screen is the daughter, I guess it's Lee's daughter, is wearing a beanie that turned out to be $380. And so I thought that was very interesting that, and we're going to get into some of this wealth and some of this money that's actually absolutely jaw-dropping. But so I appreciate the fact that there's a whole lack of accountability. And the problem with the accountability is that we want to make sure that the money is just going to where the parishioners and the members think that they're going. I think there's a lot of trust in that situation that, we're thinking, okay, don't blindly give to a church, because, that's really what's going on here. Most, I think 99.9% of the time, most people are going to a church, they're tithing, and they have no idea really where the money goes. They don't see the books every month. And so, and that's really, isn't that kind of really what your principle was by giving? Even in the trailer, it shows that, where you said, well, I'm going to give to this ministry so that way I can ask where the money is going. Isn't that the principle and the thought behind it?
Yeah, the thought is, hey, if you ask me for my money and I generously give it to you, I should be able to raise my hand and say, okay, I just want to see where it's going. And
Yes.
You learn about this in the series. Politicians have realized this problem since the 70s. And Senator Grassley is a great example. Like he foresaw this in the 70s with the PTL scandals, and he's like, hey, we have a mouse-sized problem right now in the 70s, and legislation never got passed. The rules were never fixed. And so now 50 years later, a mouse-sized problem has turned into an elephant-sized problem. We're sitting on $1 trillion problem right now.
Yeah, and I've got a note here. I thought it was interesting that during all of that with the Senate Finance Committee, there were 27 reports that were taken in, and Grassley was running all of that. And Benny Hinn actually spent $5 million. I wonder where that $5 million came from. Was it tithe money? Fighting the inquiry. So I think that's very interesting as well. That comes out in there as well. So I thought that was interesting. Okay, another big takeaway. The mega church. Julie Royce actually is who says this. She says the mega church is like a Walmart-like church. And then you got small churches that are continuing to close, right? Because people are transitioning over to these big fog machine churches with the music and the pastors wearing the cool clothes and all of that kind of stuff. Or the members are older, they're passing away, and the church is just continuing to shrink for one reason or another. And then you got that big mega church, pastor gets into a scandal, and then the church closes, and now you're left with a vacuum and wounded people. And it is a recipe for destroying the church. Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
So the first part of that is calling it what it is. It's a business. They have revenue and they have expenses. And businesses, it's the same kind of thing when you talk about the Walmart concept, right? Like small mom and pop shops in the business world they're at a massive competitive disadvantage because they don't have all the things that Walmart has. You can walk in Walmart and get anything. And same thing, you can walk into a mega church and have coffee, donuts, great sound, great music, great, theater day, theater night. You have great childcare programs and all that. All that is expensive. It is very expensive. And the difference is Walmart's built on is a for-profit company. These are not. These are donations, and you're supposed to make disciples of all nations, and you're supposed to take care of the sick and the poor and the marginalized. And then that gets missed because you've built this crazy sized machine that needs to continue to get fed. And then ego comes in, and you have a massive amount of ego. Like, I don't want to lose that lifestyle. I mean, it's human nature. You're flying private. The donations pay for your house and your second home and your third home. How do you unwind that life? How do you step into the light now and say, I've been spending all this money on these things and inuring, and it's been to my gain and benefit. I mean, it's a tough thing. And I'm saying from a human nature standpoint, but Nathan and I love everyone. And we love our enemies, and we pray for them. People that hate us and want to take us down and don't want us to be around. And, anyone who is in that lifestyle and been a byproduct of that system, we're here to say we love you, and we love to have a conversation with you, and we love to walk in the light with you on this.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting. I did make a note to ask Nathan. So you had Pastor Mac Hammond cancel. So he canceled an interview with you after reviewing the questions that you had sent him. What in the world was on your questionnaire? What were the list of questions?
Softball.
How did you scare him off?
It was just very simple questions. And, it was, what is a church? Like, what is a pastor? Going down the definitions. And then it's like, hey, should the church be the beacon of accountability in your community? There was nothing aggressive. It was, it should have been a lot of yeses, yes, And as soon as he read that question list, he just got, he didn't respond. His assistant responded and said, oh, we're going to cancel. And that, Mac Hammond was one of the first interviews from the pastoral side for the show that we had scheduled, and that response has been a consistent response for the last 2.5 years. So there's even today there was a pastor kind of snipping at me online, and so I wrote back like, hey, I'll fly up to you, let's talk, like let's sit down on a live feed and like debate and let people ask us questions. And of course he didn't respond on the Instagram thread, but he DM'd me, and he's like, oh, Nathan, well, I am accountable, and it's, yeah, my numbers aren't public, but if if one of my he just gives his spiel, but he won't ever talk publicly. He won't go on. Nobody will. And so what we've done is we've just put our finger on a systemic issue in the American church. And instead of a single pastor coming towards the light, like Chris said, being like, hey, I'm a part of this, like we're all part of.
Yeah. Oh, we might have lost him for a second.
Yeah, I can carry. There you go. We lost you, Nathan, for like 15 seconds.
Sorry, I was getting a call, but so we have put our finger on this issue in the American culture and in the Christian culture here in America, and instead of pastors being like, yeah, we're all byproducts of this legal architecture that is massively abused, let's fix it.
to Chris's point, like they're so inundated in the system that they would rather just sit silent and back out.
Well, now Mac Hammond is saying that, he is accountable and that his or is this the guy that you were talking about today where the DM? So the guy with the DM is saying, I am accountable. They're just not public numbers. Well, okay, but those numbers should be available to the people that are tithing and giving to the church, the members of his church, right?
Yeah, well, he even said, he goes, my salary is not public knowledge. People don't know my salary. And this is what he goes. He goes, the board voted on the salary. And he goes, Nathan, this is my favorite part. He goes, Nathan, I selected the board. I didn't have, he goes, I didn't have to, but I selected the board. And so all I wrote back is, so the board is biased. It's your friends and family. Like, this is the problem with the system, bud. And
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
And you learn that in the docu-series. I thought it was interesting too with Gina Zerlo. She says 89%. Now this is data from 2020. 89% of the world is religious. Given in tithes. Now this was 2020. 890 billion with a B dollars. Overseas missions is 47 billion of that. And also, by the way, stolen annually $53 billion.
Just wait till you get to episode 7. We have new numbers for you.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so let's keep going. So I was shocked to find out a little bit here about what's going on in Alaska. Okay, so tell the story, Nathan, of how you end up finding out about Samaritan's Purse, and have you gotten to the bottom of anything about this Heal Our Patriots stuff that's going on there?
Yeah. So again, we don't choose our targets, so to speak, if you want to call them that, or we don't choose who we're going to explore. I was in Alaska on a fishing trip with a friend, and we were just sitting with some Inuits. We were staying like ultra remote Alaska. So we had to fly into Anchorage, then we took a hopper to, trying to think of what island it was, and then we took a float plane in. So we're fishing in this ultra backwoods in Alaska. You can't drive there. There's no roads. And these two Inuits are like, oh yeah, we run a barge up the rivers and we barge supplies up for these small little, outfitters. And I'm like, oh, cool. And they're like, yeah, you won't believe it. We barged a soft top Ford Bronco. So this is like 2021 or 2022, I believe, 2022. And this is right when the new Ford Broncos came out. Hard to get. They're selling for $100,000. They're marked up.
Yep.
And they knew that I was making this show called The Religion Business. And I'm like, what is a soft top Ford Bronco doing in one of the most remote places in the world? And then not only that, but with the harshest weather in the world. And so they're like, yeah, you won't believe who paid the invoice. And they're like, a Christian nonprofit did. And I'm like, wait, what's the nonprofit called? And they're like, Samaritan's Purse. And that's when I'm like, okay, I was raised on Billy Graham. Like my parents used to take me to to his massive, stadium events. And so I'm like, okay, I got to look into this because I respect Billy Graham. And that's what took me down this rabbit hole. And every time you stick your head into one of these rabbit holes, it just yanks you in and you just keep falling. And so the summation of this is Samaritan's Purse. Franklin Graham has taken over Samaritan's Purse from his father. And in the last 3 years, they've almost doubled their net assets. So they're worth almost $2 billion in assets. And then the crazy part, though, is they have this operation now in Alaska called Heal Our Patriots, which is awesome. Like my best friend's in the military. My brother was in the military. I have massive respect. Chris has done 64 combat missions. I have massive respect for our military. And so, Samaritan's Purse has this very unique lodge in Alaska called Heal Our Patriots, and they fly in because they have to fly in on small private planes, military couples. And so the core message is good, to what they're trying to do. But the cost to produce an operation like that is in the tens of millions a year. And so I go up there and I explore the property. And what they're doing is very interesting up there. But when you look at Samaritan's Purse 990, it's not even a line item expense. So there's tens of millions of dollars of donor dollars being buried in their 990, and no one knows what's happening in Alaska. And so I have my opinions, and that this will probably come out once we do more research in future episodes potentially. But the Samaritan's Purse story in the show is about line items, meaning these budgets and these nonprofits budgets, secular nonprofits, by the way. So if Samaritan's Purse files a 990, you have tens of millions of dollars missing on these 990s. And then churches don't even file a 990. So it just shows that you can easily bury tens of millions worth of donor dollars and no one knows where it goes. And so it's technically just a pet project. Franklin loves Alaska. He owns a house up there. He bought real estate up there before Samaritan's Purse started this. Samaritan's Purse shipped him his own soft top, Bronco up there. And it's all donor money. And so, you can.
But when you say donor money, is that, I mean, I guess they're not a church, so it's not tithe money, but it's or is it? Is it an offering? Because you have tithes and offerings. So when we say there's donor money, who's the donors?
When I say donors, it's individuals that give to Samaritan's Purse. So like I donate to certain nonprofits. It's just me going on their website and hitting give and giving $100, $1,000, $1 million, whatever you give, right? The difference is with religious organizations, you'd consider it a tithe or an offering, but in the secular nonprofit world, you just consider it a gift. It's a donation.
And they're still not, but if you give online, let's say I go on and I give Samaritan's Purse $1,000, the argument here or the thought process is that then you, as giving them money, you should be able to also see how they spend their money.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. The next thing I wanted to bring up, I thought this was interesting as well. And this is so true, talking about the dopamine effect from giving. And so you're talking about 10% of your income. And also this was interesting, talking about how the Mormon church, now I happen to know, but I did not know that the Mormon church had this much stuff. So they're worth, as of, I'm not sure what year, but $265 billion. So people can come to the church at their most vulnerable times and points in life. And you've got all this stuff going on with money. They own $265 billion. What I thought was interesting is the way that you helped to explain that. So in the National Basketball Association, there are 30 franchises. All of those franchises equal a value of about $120 billion. You could buy 2 complete whole, National Basketball Associations with those 30 franchises. So you could own 60 franchises and still have millions left over. I'm sorry, billions with a B. So I thought that was interesting. And then there's also this whole thing about the giving. So there's a dopamine effect from giving. So and I think that's interesting because there's still a responsibility that when you give, so you give to an institute, the person gives to, let's say, the church, and so they tithe. But then there's 2 consequences. So giving up the stewardship of your donation, and then also no human element in the exchange. Chris, I thought this was very interesting and very, very important to not be lost in this 7-part series.
Yeah.
Very important.
It is. And I like to think about it this way. How amazing of a dopamine effect will it be when you actually can be connected to the end beneficiary and you know that it's going to help the poor, the sick, and marginalized? I think it's, culturally speaking, we've kind of gotten into a mindset that with the tithe, like you're just giving it to this box for God, right? Like that's kind of what you're taught. And so you're doing a good thing, right? You're doing a good thing and it brings you back a good feeling, right? It's the law of energy there. And then when you think about that, you go, wow, that's powerful. But this goes back to Matthew 25 about who Christ says for us to help. Imagine when you can actually be helping those people suffering and be connected and communicate with them, what a dopamine effect that will be. That's going to be human flourishing for society.
Sure. So here at the Michelle Moore Show, we're coming close to a year now of collecting and donating, and I'm getting ready. I'm preparing for my 9th trip to North Carolina for helping Hurricane Helene survivors. They really haven't been helped much at all, even though we hear, that President Trump has given $2 billion toward that. Just like yesterday, President Trump comes out and says all this stuff that's gone on in California. Now there's missing millions of dollars that's missing, of course. And most people, almost none, already have their permits to rebuild and all that kind of stuff. And so that North Carolina is experiencing the same situation. Here at the Michelle Moore Show, we've raised and taken already in food and supplies and love offerings over $205,000.
Wow, that's awesome.
And so I was just texting before the show today with Jenica, a woman that we're working with, we work with, to get all of this out to the area and the school kids and all that. And you're right. When you go and you see what they're doing, and you go and you see the different people that are helping to get it spread, help get spread out, working with the grocery store like I was this weekend. You're right. There is an element of that hands-on, or even reporting back and showing the videos and the footage and the photos of what we're doing, and the truck being loaded with pallets of groceries and being delivered. You're right. And that's what I don't understand, is why I think it's almost like clocking in. People just want to, okay, I gave my 10% and they move on. They're, whether they're just busy. And I think some of that's probably intentional as well through the system that we live within. But I totally agree with you. And that's a perfect example. Okay. So I found it interesting. I want to say also the IRS gentleman,
Phil Hackney.
having him, Phil Hackney, that was really good. He explained some things from the IRS perspective that was quite interesting. But Nathan, you say in there, well, there's 14 factors to see if an organization is a church. And I thought this was interesting. Of course, they just, come up with this from the Salvation Army. But you said it covers Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, everything. And you say you could probably turn anything into a church. I thought that was very, just call yourself a church. So I thought that was interesting, but I did not know how much stuff the LDS Church owns. So I knew they had a lot of land. So let's talk about this for a second. They're about the second largest landowner in the United States, owning 2.3 million acres in the United States alone. Okay. They have farms, ranches, apartment buildings, orchards, manufacturing facilities, resort and a hotel in Hawaii. They have 133 acres south of Orlando where they're planning to develop a brand new city. By the way, again, just the LDS Church. So there's Mormons. And so they have residential and commercial real estate, luxury condos, and a radio and broadcasting facilities. So this is amazing too, because they go through great lengths to hide the uber wealth they have, really. Because one of the reasons given is because they wouldn't want their members to think that their members don't need to tithe. Nathan, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so you learned this in the show, but this 14-point checklist is relatively new. It's 60 years old. And so just through precedent and through how we don't live that long, humans don't live that long. So when I'm raised in my church, I just think this is church, right? 80 years ago, this wasn't church. 200 years ago, this wasn't church, right? They're just cultural. I call them cultural markers. So like the mega church today is just a cultural marker of today. It's not the church from 20 years ago or 40 years ago or 60 years ago. And so when you start looking at the legal precedent, and this is where Phil Hackney is so genius in the show, is he breaks down these terminologies that churches and denominations lobbied to have added in. And so one is an auxiliary that was lobbied by the LDS Church, and that was added. And then conventions and associations. Those three terms you learn are undefinable. And so anything technically can be an auxiliary. And so that's how the LDS Church was able to swing a hedge fund, Ensign Peak Advisors. They were able to label a hedge fund as a church, which means that investment fund, which is there strictly for-profit endeavors, has the same exemption benefits that the actual church does. And so this is what you learn in the show is if you put smart and shrewd lawyers and businessmen at the head of churches, and guess what? Jesus had a lot to say to the lawyers back in the temple, by the way. And so when you put lawyers and businessmen and women at the head of these companies, what are they going to do? They're going to lawyer and think they're going to run it like a business. And what happens when you run a business with no accountability? You get really aggressive. And so flash forward only about 25 years since Ensign was created, and the LDS Church now has a hedge fund that made 25 billion, that's with a B, in profits last year alone off their investments. And so what the LDS Church is going to become in less than 10 years, it will have over $1 trillion in assets, all in the name of religious freedom in the US.
Okay, so oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go on.
Oh, so I was just going to say, so they could become very soon, actually, one of the biggest corporations in the world, all leveraging tax exemption in the name of Jesus. And
Okay,
so yeah.
So the reason why I called Steve Jarvis this morning is, he's got this whole background being a 5th generation farmer.
Mhm.
And I did not know that religious organizations didn't pay property taxes. Makes sense. I just didn't know it. And so when I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But then when you say that they own ranches and farms, and then you say not only are they the 2nd largest landowner in the United States, but they are the largest in Nebraska, Florida, Illinois, and Utah. So you got 4 states there. So what gets me is when you have somebody like a Steve Jarvis who wants to purchase a piece of property. You did a great job in making this point. But obviously, as soon as I hear this, I think my mind immediately went to that. And then thank goodness you guys drew it out. But it's like, and got into that detail. So let's say you have Steve Jarvis, farmer. You're just an average American man wanting to buy a farm. He's going to bid on it. And then you've got the LDS Church. Well, if you've got the LDS Church not paying property taxes on hundreds of thousands of acres, let's say, or tens of thousands of acres, and they're not having to pay property taxes on it, they're going to figure that in to whether or not they can make a higher bid or a lower bid. Steve Jarvis Farmer is never going to be able to compete with the LDS Church, who has all these, hoity-toity special tax breaks. This is complete insanity.
It is complete insanity. It's a completely unfair advantage.
Yes.
It's totally anti-American.
Yeah.
It's totally
Right.
anti-American.
Okay. The other thing that I had an issue with about the whole thing, look, I don't care necessarily that I didn't know nonprofits could make a profit. So that was a new one to me. But when I'm watching this, my issue is, where are the people? So, where are the people in this? Where's the sick? Where are the widows? And I want to show this to you. Producer Ron, show this image about Kenneth Copeland's grandson. And so in the Docu-series, we learn a lot about aircraft, and obviously here at the Michelle Moore Show, we've talked about it. So like grandfather, like grandson, Kenneth Copeland's grandson raising money for a private jet. So this was earlier. We covered it back in June. So June 12th, 2025, we're talking about almost 2 months ago. And so I guess this is his wife on the stage with him. I'm not really certain, but the grandson is believing for, I forget how much it was. It was like $1 million or $1.2 million for a plane that he was wanting to have. And this is the kind of stuff that upsets me, because these people are doing these things in the name of Jesus, in the name of religion, whatever you want to call it. We weren't born for religion. We were born for relationships. So it's hard for me to use I call it the R word, which is religion. But thank you, producer Ron. And so, so this is the kind of stuff that upsets me, because where's the poor in this? And not only that, but then there was a quote from a gentleman that was talking. Now, this really upset me when I heard him say this, but the gentleman was talking about how, it's, let me see here. I've got 10 pages of notes. Here it is. And so this was Russell M. Nelson is a pastor. He says, it's a precious privilege to be able to tithe. He's talking about tithing. And he says, and it protects you in the day of burning. So in other words, you're not getting to heaven if you don't tithe. I mean, that doesn't even sound like Jesus to me. I'm sorry, but
Absolutely.
it just doesn't even. And so this is where so many people have been duped for so many years. And you're talking about a system like the grandson of Kenneth Copeland. I see, in the docuseries, you end up seeing Nathan visiting the compound there. And that's a whole nother story where things were promised. Where's that? I mean, any other person that would be raising money outside of the church would be arrested for fraud. So Kenneth Copeland, has all this compound called the revival capital of the world. He's got oil wells. He's got 1,200 acre compound that has an airport and an airport hangar, a 19,000 square foot mansion. and where's the elderly community that was promised, and all the different facilities and things that were going to be built that would have been for the people, the members. Those things conveniently got left out somehow years later.
Correct. Yeah, that's a pattern we see, right? And it's I see it, and I saw it in Africa too in the show. There, there's well-intentioned, and I'm gonna like Kenneth Copeland's grandson. He's just following in the footsteps of his grandfather.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we do what we're taught, and so I won't hold him. I won't beat him over the head for what he's doing. It's like, hey, yeah, your whole system is flawed. So like, take your blinders off, take your bias off, and see what you're actually doing. Because to Chris's point in Matthew 25, Christ gave very specific directions and directives on who we should be helping as Christians. And I'll tell you right now, for your audience, the Christian church has enough resources to radically transform the world tomorrow because of your generous giving. Tomorrow, $1 trillion. So I'm gonna blow the whistle on this one in episode 7. Christians give over $1 trillion a year now. It went from 890 in 2020, 890 billion to over $1 trillion. So Christians give more than the US military budget every year, and we're not solving problems. If we just stopgapped the theft, which you talked about, Michelle, that 53 billion in
Yeah.
just straight theft, if we brought accountability practices into the church and just stopped that, the Christian church could solve the top 20 global social issues, and it would affect no one's bottom line. So Kenneth Copeland's grandson could still beg for that plane. Like, we're not changing their paradigm. We're just saying, hey, all churches should be more accountable with their resources and with the generosity of their donor, and we could change the world. We don't need more. But here's what we're seeing, and this is where future stories we're going to be telling are: churches are getting so expensive and so money hungry that they're not only asking for tithes anymore, which that's an argument in and of itself, but now they're saying, hey, give us your 10% and then give above and beyond your 10%. So they're not even like looking at the Mosaic covenants in the Torah anymore, or Melchizedek. They're just making things up as they go. And so that's the conclusion to an unaccountable system is, once you smell that money, you're just going to keep smelling it. You're going to want more and more. And one conclusion in the show is, all throughout history, since Christ died to present day, anytime the institution needed money, it found a couple verses in the Bible to justify the demand for that requirement. And selling indulgences is a prime example of that. The Vatican was broke. They were waging wars. They wanted to build the basilica. And the Pope is like, man, I'm out of money. Let's figure out how to raise more money. And so they started selling indulgences. So today I look at like how churches are raising money, and all they're doing is figuring out some backwards way to justify their demand for you to give them more money. And none of it's biblical, none of it's sound. You can either argue it's either misinterpreting the Holy Scriptures or it's straight up abusing them. But yeah, that's where we're at this point is, and then the individual you brought up, and by the way, my flight is delayed, so I can stay on for 15 more minutes.
Okay.
But Russell M. Nelson is the prophet and the president of the LDS Church. And so he's saying, give us your 10%. And if you don't give us your 10%, you will not be able to enjoy the benefits of our storehouse in the day of vengeance and burning. And so he's literally threatening you that if you don't give us your 10%, you will not enjoy the benefits of the storehouse. And so talk about manipulation.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I just recently learned, but forgot until I was listening to this again, and I'm talking very recently learned this. If you're not paying 10% and you're part of the LDS, if you're not paying the 10% of your income, you can't even enter their temples.
Correct.
I was listening to a former woman who was talking about this, and I'm just going, these people have no shame.
Yeah.
Now, I just found out recently from somebody who's married to a lady that's part of the Mormon church. He is not, but he was telling me some of the insanity. He lives in Utah, and he was saying that they're doing a new thing now. And the new thing is they are going to have, I guess there's some kind of garb or outfit you're supposed to have. And because some people are too poor to be able to afford those, they're going to be renting them. They're not giving the widows or any of the poor this garb. You can rent them. I'm just like,
Wow.
it's insanity. It's just
Yeah.
and then when I watch your docu-series, I've heard, yeah, they have the most land or maybe second most land, but then now to hear some of this other stuff and this money and the loopholes, I thought this was absolutely just jaw-dropping to hear how big and massive this is.
Mhm.
And so, okay, I did want to make sure that we also covered about the Evangelical Council for Financial Accountability, which came about in 1979. And of course, this ends up being really a self-regulation that was led by Billy Graham. And so, Chris, can you kind of give us an idea about what this really is and how effective or ineffective it's been?
Well, I'll talk high level on it, and then Nathan explored that one really, really well. But like that organization is funded by the same people it's supposedly like evaluating. So just from a business perspective, like you're already at a massive conflict of interest right there. So I'll put it at that. And Nathan's awesome on the history on this.
Yeah, so the ECFA, like I said, like you said, Billy Graham and a couple other evangelical leaders tried to spin it up because Congress was really looking at the system saying, hey, there's major problems right now in the system. It's a mouse-sized problem, but you have, the PTL scandals, you have these massive scandals where hundreds of millions of dollars are disappearing. And so, okay, we got to get ahead of this. And so Billy Graham and a few other evangelical leaders were like, okay, well, we don't want government regulating us. And there is a sound argument for that. And so what did they do? They created this council called the ECFA, and they're like, we're going to self-regulate. Well, just that term right there, like self-regulation, like that's like me saying, Chris, you and I are going to put hundreds of millions on the table, and you and I are going to self-regulate this money. Like, no, that doesn't work. And so the ECFA was well-intentioned, but the funny part is, before the PTL scandals really broke, PTL and Jim Baker was one of the first people to sign on to the ECFA. He even used it in his case to say, hey, I'm a part of the ECFA. So from its inception, it proved that it was fatally flawed, and it was a rubber stamp, basically. And the sad part is that rubber stamp has literally been used for 40 plus years now. And I mean, like every pastor I talk to, as soon as I start talking about this, they go, hey, Nathan, I'm a member of the ECFA. You know who else was a member of the ECFA? John MacArthur. I mean, do you know the pastor John MacArthur out of
Yes.
out of Southern California? So his church, Grace, was a member of the ECFA, and Julie Roys, the investigators in the show, had questions about something, and so in part of and don't quote me exactly on this because I don't have the bylaws in front of me or ECFA structure, but the ECFA, if you're a reporter, you can ask the ECFA for information on one of its member churches. So she went and asked the ECFA for financial documentation on Grace. Well, instead of Grace being like, yep, here's our documentation, you know what John MacArthur and Grace did? They just left the ECFA. They said, we don't need to give you those financials. See ya. And so it just shows that the ECFA has no teeth. It's literally like the what would you even call it? It's like your little brother, that you can like, he's 4 years younger than you, you're 9 years old, you can pick on him, you can drag him around, but you can be like, yeah, I have a brother.
A homeowners association has more teeth.
Yes.
In the
That's
perspective.
a great point. That's a great point, Chris.
Yeah.
Okay. I liked also that you made the comment about people like what's popular. I think it's a slippery slope. We have to be careful. Sometimes if it's this shiny object and it's got the fog machine and it's got this and it's got that, I think sometimes what ends up happening is we get into this slippery slope without really realizing it. Doesn't mean that it's better. Doesn't mean that it's, just because it's popular doesn't mean that it's good and righteous. And so I thought that was a really good point that was made. And so also I did make a note. So 2 questions. So Jessica Hahn, I was probably a little young for this. And so I've learned a lot about PTL and Jim Baker through my producer Ron. We had a big conversation about all this. I guess it was about a year or so ago. And so he was telling me some of this. I was not raised in the church. And so I became a believer in my mid-20s, really to a whole nother level. And and kind of going from there. I didn't bring a lot of this stuff with me, this religiosity, as he and I call it. And so, but he's told me some backstory. Of course, I knew the name Jessica Hahn, didn't really know who she was with. But so I didn't know that it was claimed that she was raped. And what I did not know is that he paid $265,000 of ministry funds to her to keep her quiet. So, tithing to Jim Bakker at the time was going to help keep this, woman quiet. So the payoff money. Then in there, it says that he was sentenced to 45 years. How is he out of prison now, though? So he didn't do 45 years in prison.
No, he didn't. I don't know exactly how many years he did, but he got out early, and what did he do? He
went right back.
He went right back on
back at
TV and started begging for money. He even started
Yeah.
selling like buckets of food. So like doomsday food containers. And there's a great clip that didn't make the show, but he's on TV, and he's an older gentleman now, and he's on TV, and he opens up this 5-gallon drum of soup, and he puts his ladle in it and sips it. And you can just tell he thinks he sips it. He's just like, whoo, oh my goodness, he's having to sell this horrible soup, to scare I don't know, to scare Christians into stockpiling food. I don't know, but it's the most bizarre thing. But there's a problem in the system. There's a greater problem. The system is large, and I've had family members that do this. You leave high school, you might go to college, or you go into seminary. But if you go into seminary and get a master's of divinity, you can't go and take that master's of divinity to Intel or to Home Depot or to wherever and say, hey, like, here's my college education. They'll laugh you out of the room. And so that master's of divinity pigeonholes you to one job, which is being a pastor. And so if the only thing, Jim Bakker knows is how to slang people for money and slang soup, then that's what he's going to do even when he gets out of prison, all in the name of God. And so it's
true.
like we've created these seminaries now, or just creating pop-outs, and I've talked to lots of them, and there's a lot of really good intentioned pastors out there who are just like, Nathan, I have no place to go. I have 4 kids, a mortgage. Like, what else am I going to do? I'm not going to go work at Quiznos or Subway. Like, my bills are too high, so I'm going to continue to ask my congregation for money. And it's just they're stuck in the system. And I'll end this type of comment, or this conversation, on a conversation I had with a gentleman who's been in the missions field and pastoring his whole career. And he's an older gentleman now and retired. And his conclusion is that there is not a single person who can go into this field for their career, for their entire career, and come out without it eating them alive. He's like, every pastor, no matter how good intentioned, who gets into the system will be corrupted by the system, because the system is expensive. So you have to tilt all your messages, all your sermons, everything to asking for money, depending on how much you need, right? But everything is just tainted with this idea of we need, give us resources, we need. And he's like, it just eats you alive.
Yeah,
So
I'm talking about
Sorry,
talking about this, and this is a prime example. So in talking about Samaritan's Purse, in 2022, you in the show, in the docu-series, you say there's 111 million in aircraft alone, 50 million in travel expenses. Well, when you got, this remote location, I mean, of course, and 30 million was just staff travel. I'm like, where are they flying them around to? I guess to different disasters and stuff throughout the country or throughout the world. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is, but that's the point.
And let me confirm that 111 million is just their jets. That's not their cargo planes. So that's just the private aircraft that the family uses, which is in a shell company, because people don't, the Grahams don't want people to know that they're just flying private. And we have those flight logs. And I'll tell you right now, their planes fly from North Carolina to the Cayman Islands a lot. And they do 90-minute turnarounds in the Cayman Islands. And there's only one thing that they would be doing in the Cayman Islands.
Money.
Nathan, what kind of plane? What kind of the latest plane they got? And correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan. That went to the Cayman Islands was a 767.
No, they just bought a new jumbo cargo jet out of Australia, which I believe is the 767 you're referring to. But they're smaller Lear jets, or their G550s or whatever. One of those makes frequent trips to the Cayman Islands, and there's only one reason why a plane would touch down in the Caymans for a
Yeah.
few minutes and turn right around.
Banking appointment.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know the details to the Ravi Zacharias. So I thought this was interesting. So you had a lady whose name is Ruth, and she ran PR for him, but her background was in politics. And so she said something that really grieved my heart. She said, you could question Jesus, but you couldn't question Ravi. She said that when she spoke up and said, has anybody even thought, like, first of all, nobody was worried about finding out the truth about the woman who was claiming to be abused by him. So there were a couple of takeaways that I wanted to talk about with you on this. And so she says, when she spoke up and said, well, has anybody even thought to like check his mobile devices? They suspended her, Ruth, and said that you're tired and emotional. They tried to accuse her of preparing to set him up somehow. I mean, that she was just trying to get into the truth, and really what nobody wasn't interested in anything other than protecting his legacy.
Mhm.
Why would that be, Nathan? Does he have children or grandchildren that are in the business, the family religion business, or what's the good thing for protecting his legacy to move forward?
Well, when you create this goes back to this celebrity culture in the religious space, right? And in the Christian space in particular. Ravi was a celebrity. You know, his ministry, which I find so funny, RZIM, Ravi Zacharias International Ministries. Like, you name the company after yourself. You don't name it Jesus's International Ministries, or, you know, you're naming it after yourself. So Ravi becomes the face, he becomes the icon of the ministry. And so you have to protect that, because hey, you got $40 million coming in every year of donor money. There's a lot of people enjoying a comfortable life off that money. So if Ravi all of a sudden is seen as a predator who goes around the world abusing women in impoverished countries, like, that's a problem to the brand. And so you end up protecting the brand at all cost, which means, hey, you can question Jesus, because guess what? His message hasn't changed. But don't you dare question Ravi, because if you question Ravi and something comes out, then the ministry gets hurt, and then funding usually drops. And so even on, you know, even at his memorial, like when these very legit allegations were surfaced, you know, Vice President Mike Pence was up there saying, oh man, he is the modern
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis of our time. As they knew that this man was probably a pedophile or a predator, you know, like, oh, nope, doesn't matter. He's the C.S. Lewis of our time. Why? Because we have to protect the brand at all costs, because hey, 40 million bucks a year is coming in, and you know, much of his family enjoyed that gravy train. He did, his wife did, his kids did. And so yeah, you protect the brand at
Yeah.
all cost.
It's crazy. All right. So there's so much more to cover. I would do want to let everybody know the religionbusiness.com is where you can go to see the docu-series. There is a charge for it. I don't even know how much I paid yesterday. Is it like $19.99 or something like that? Do you all know how much?
Yeah, it's $21.99. That
$21.
includes taxes. And then but if you download the Broken Shepherds app, you get a several dollar discount off
Oh,
that.
okay. Okay. So I know you have to go, Nathan. We're going to keep Chris for a couple more minutes, and we're going to talk about the app. I want to make sure I understand about that. But before we let you go, this is one of the reasons I want the viewers to know. This is one of the reasons why I had asked at the beginning of the show to please share this on your social media posts. Producer Ron, so this morning I was looking at X and I come across this. So this says the account is temporarily restricted. Why are you restricted on X, which was formerly known as Twitter? And what is going on?
Chris, you want to take that, or do you want me to?
I'm happy to take it. So, big picture, we can't get into our account to even address the situation. We've been told we get sent emails, and the email actually, you know, it'll say like whatever the email address is, the first letter, asterisk, at such and such, which matches our, like, that makes sense. It's the account we signed up with, and we haven't gotten anything, nothing in our junk mail or anything. And then, so we were just like, what have we posted that's like so crazy or wild? Nothing, right? Like, we're promoting the docu-series. And then someone mentioned the other day that it was because we were promoting the docu-series in text threads, and it wasn't Nathan or I, it was someone on our team went into, there was like 10 comments, 10 comments he put in there, which was like, hey, if anything was related somehow to that topic that would fall into the religion business one way or another, he would go in and say, hey, please go check out this docu-series, The Religion Business. And so I don't know if it's that or what, but I got to find it, once is one thing, but there's a pattern here. TikTok permanently banned us. Eventbrite didn't let us promote our own screening that we were doing in Salt Lake City, and it was our ticketing medium. That's how we were selling tickets. And people told us they couldn't even search the religion business up in there to get it. So it's just there's a pattern with us marketing things that gets axed. So shout out to Instagram. They've been good to us, and I know you're on Rumble, which is great. And I think we just signed up with Rumble today, or we're going to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's very interesting. I want to go over a couple of viewer comments and questions. And so, Nathan, you just let us know when you need to go. But I wanted to make sure that everybody knew thereligionbusiness.com is where you go to sign up for it. And I want to go over a couple of viewer comments and questions, and then we'll go over the app because I want to make sure I understand that as well. Okay, Chris?
Sounds great.
So Angel Clement says, I watched the 7-hour documentary the first weekend that it was out. It was done quite well and an eye-opener. Absolutely done very well. KM Sunshine says, the board of churches are yes men. They are supposed to hold those accountable. Driscoll says, do you think that when tithes and offerings are given with expecting blessings in return, the church preaches to, hold on, I lost it there. The church preaches to give in order to get a return? ? So I think it's kind of like that whole thing about how God will multiply it is what Driscoll's referring to.
Yeah, I would assume he's referring to Malachi 3:10, and where the windows of heaven will pour out a blessing, But what people don't realize is that verse was written to Israel, and those blessings are actually listed out in the Torah. And there's a series of blessings and a series of curses. And so people just skip over this, especially Christians today. We just skip over it. We read Malachi 3, or Kenneth Copeland loves to preach Malachi 3. And it's like, you're just preaching one small part of that story to justify your ask. So if Kenneth Copeland's saying Malachi 3, it's because he wants your money. So he's saying, hey, a blessing's going to come. It's not any blessing, though. Like if you're talking about the Old Testament laws, that blessing is written out. And if you don't tithe, then there's a series of curses that are going to hit you as well. But the difference is the tithe back then was not monetary. You had to be a Jewish landowner, so you had to own land in Israel to even bring the tithe to the temple. And the tithe was either agriculture or livestock off the land that you owned. And the kicker is you enjoyed a part of that tithe. So if I brought an animal to the temple and that Levite broke down that animal, the Levite would take a leg of the animal for his family and himself, and then he would boil the rest, and guess who would get to take the rest home? Me. And I would get to enjoy it with my family, and we could eat it. And so the tithe systems are so misunderstood and so abused. Now, if you're a Christ follower, Christ gave you very specific guidelines on how to give and who to give to. And so that's what I would focus on. If you ever hear someone say, hey, give and you're going to receive a blessing, that is, again, I always say, because I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, it's either misrepresentation and misunderstanding of scripture, or it's straight abuse of scripture to leverage people to give you money.
Yeah.
But none of it is biblically sound.
That's
if
right.
you hear that.
Cheerful Blonde says, if Americans have missed the corruption in government, chances are good that they also didn't see infiltration in their church.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think there's a parallel between politics and religion as well, too. You often will see members of Congress that go in with great intentions, right? 2-4 years, right? This is why everyone talks about term limits. Well, it's the same thing, but you go into that machine where there's so much greed and it's so expensive to keep running, and you make promises to people and there's lobbying and all that. In this world, in the religious world, it's the same thing. If someone goes in for their entire lifetime and their profession is being a pastor and they're pigeonholed into that, and they have to feed this machine and they have to compete with the church down the street for consumers for money to come in, yeah, it's going to lead to corruption in human nature. And we keep using the word accountability. I loved it. Someone, I think your second comment mentioned that, but there can't be accountability without transparency.
That's
There
right.
can't, because what are you going to be held accountable for? And so
Yeah.
that's the whole problem with this space is that the members in the congregation have no power. It's these boards and these pastors that are running the church that choose what is shared and what's not. And if you don't want to let your congregation know how much they're paying you to do what you do, that's a huge problem. I mean, it's a massive problem. It means you think they would be upset with it, or you want to hide it, I mean, but like, them by their fruits. How did you get 3 houses?
Yeah, right.
How do you have a Ferrari?
We're not joking. Well, he is a Ferrari.
But
Now,
he
he has a
is.
Ferrari because he is a Ferrari, Chris. You need to pay attention. That pastor said he has a Ferrari because he is a Ferrari.
God gave him a Ferrari.
That's right. That's right, because he's a Ferrari.
Because he's a Ferrari.
Okay, I don't know what that means exactly, but okay. So there's just so much going on with all that. It's just it's if I was even ever on the fence after watching the first 5 episodes, I'm just like, okay, this is just so obviously horrible.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. Okay, so Donnie says, it's so hard to change our thinking when we were when it was ingrained in the church system, when we were ingrained in the church system. Mark Taylor helped me so much to get out. Yes, we have many people say that. Rules PW says, wow, I am glued to this podcast. Thank you for sharing God's truth. This is eye-opening. You're welcome.
Awesome.
Next viewer says, have Nathan and Chris have your lives been threatened?
Yes.
And how can we pray for you?
I mean, pray. I think just praying for that no weapon formed against us shall prosper.
That's right.
I mean, it's like walking out. Being a Christian is dangerous. Being a follower of Christ is dangerous. I mean, read the Bible. That's a story. Yeah, speaking truth's dangerous, and so just that us and our families are protected, and
yes,
and honestly, like praying for those that hate us and want to hurt us, for the softening of their hearts, as well too. And that's a tough thing to do, right? Christ says it's so easy for us to pray for our friends, right? Like, yeah, that's not that hard to do, but really praying for somebody who doesn't want you on the face of this earth is not easy to do, but that's denying ourselves.
That's right. Viewer Natalie said this is going to be a great show and reposted the stream. Thank you so much for sharing with your social media friends on X, Natalie. Thank you for helping us get the word out and supporting these guys with their new 7-part docu-series. Rhonda says Daystar was stealing life insurance money as the beneficiary.
Yeah.
Black Diamond says, when I lived in Germany, the village Catholic church made my husband feel like a criminal if he missed a monthly payment to them. They never ministered to us or cared about us, only cared about the money. Wow. Wyatt says, thank you, Michelle. Natalie says, going to be a sad day when they hear, get away from me, I never knew you. And so let's see. Wyatt says Russell Nelson is a skull and bones false LDS Mormon church prophet. Ciro said, reposted the stream. Thank you so much. Natalie says building funds, exclamation points. My church did the whole thing where they needed an extra parking lot. So we were going to pave the parking lot. They had to have $100,000. She goes, oops, we forgot to build the building, but me and my kids certainly got a new home. Oh no. So the pastor got a new home. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The real estate side of things is one of the biggest loopholes. And
yes.
There's so many ways that can be abused. One example is, let's say my dad starts a church when in his 30s, and for 50 years he raises money from generous donors from his generation, and they build a beautiful lavish building. They take it over, or I'm sorry, they pay it off, and everybody's enjoying it. My dad retires, I take it over. Well, guess what? I'm just going to pull a new line of credit out on the building, and the next generation of churchgoers is going to pay down the building again. It's literally just a revolving line of credit. Or if I take over this church and there's multiple campuses and I want to do something else, I'll just sell off the other campuses, and no one really can say what I can and can't do as long as I keep the corporation open. And so that's one thing we're seeing now too, is as churches shrink, really sneaky individuals sometimes move in, take over the corporation. So we'll become pastor, or friends will get on the board and they'll make these friendship boards basically, and then they'll sell off the building. And all they have to do is that money wires back into the corporate account. And guess what? As long as you don't close down this church corporation, you can just milk that money for decades sometimes.
Sure.
And so generous donors have paid down these buildings, and then the next generation just uses them for leverage. It's a horror. It's super sad.
And then viewer Wyatt says 100% rent the temple clothes to little old ladies that go without medication and food to pay their 10% that they rent them all of the clothes in all the temples. Wow.
So this is so can I give so this sounds like you have a bunch of Mormons and ex-Mormons that listen, which is awesome. So here's the good news, guys. In 1907, one
Russell,
of Joseph
G. Smith, J. Smith,
G. Smith or something, whoever the prophet was at the time in 1907, got up at the General Conference, and he said, there will come a time in the future of the LDS Church where we have tithes sufficient in the storehouse, and you will no longer need to tithe ever again. Well, guess what? That day is today. Because, and so this is the good news. The Mormon Church makes enough money just off the interest gains in the market alone. So they made $25 billion last year off interest alone. It takes about $7 billion a year with a B to operate the entire global LDS Church. So that means just off the gains in the market, that $25 billion, they would have $18 billion left over after they paid for all the church operating costs and expansion costs and everything still. They'd still have $18 billion left over. So for all my LDS friends and our LDS friends, you never have to give a dollar again to that church based off of what their prophet said in 1907. So congratulations. You've done it. Don't ever give. If you want to continue to give, now go give to a nonprofit or something in your community that's actually doing good work for the orphans, the needy, the marginalized, the widowed, you name it. But you no longer have to give to your church. So I want to throw that out there.
That's amazing news. And that's exactly why they said that they didn't want people to know how well that the LDS Church was doing. So because they didn't want people to think they didn't need to tithe.
Yeah.
But Wyatt, viewer Wyatt says, love it. Natalie says, my kid's grandfather bought a bunch of Jim Baker's bunker foods. I had the privilege of receiving a bucket. LOL.
Did you try the soup? Ask them if they tried the soup.
Natalie, did you try the soup? You got to tell us. Oh my gosh,
that's great.
That's a riot. Okay. Fly Girl says that there's that word, corruption or corporation. Yes, it's a corporation. Let's see. KM Sunshine says our old church secretary informed me that the pastor would send the tithe money that he wanted it allocated, even if we, the congregation, marked it for certain places like missions. Wow. So he didn't honor. Oh my word.
Yeah. So this is So donor intent. So that's called donor intent. And donor intent is you're supposed to respect the intentions of the donor. There's no legal ramifications that can be held up in court. If you give me $1 million and you say, Nathan, this is earmarked for hungry orphans in Sudan, and I don't spend that $1 million on that, there's no way for you, there's no recourse for you to get your money back or sue me, because donor intent there's no weight behind it. And so that's a problem, is on those church, someone sent me a photo of a mailer today from a pastor, and it was like, do you want to give it to the general fund, give to our African fund, give to this? And I was like, doesn't matter. You can mark any of those and it'll end up in one bucket, and whatever that pastor or that leadership wants to do, they'll do. And it's just, you can mark that box, but it just is a feel good deal for you. It means nothing from a legal perspective.
All right. So First Corinthians chapter 16, Paul says, now concerning money, give as you prosper. You never hear this in church. It's always about the tithe, lied to all my life.
Mhm. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Rules PW says that she tried the soup and it was awful. And Natalie said, I didn't touch the stuff, sat in my garage for 5 years until I moved, and then I chucked it. It's not just a business, it's a scam, says Philip Gray. I will agree in many ways. I'm not quite probably as graceful, I guess, or I don't know, merciful. I think that, like with Nathan, you're saying, well, the Grahams, or not the Grahams, but the Kenneth Copeland's grandson's just doing what's been modeled for him. Well, I had an aunt who has been married 5 times, and has had 2 or 3 bankruptcies. I learned from her mistakes. And so, for me, I'm just not okay with that. And I'm not even going to give the, well, he's just working in a system. He doesn't know any better. It doesn't take, you should sue your brain for non-support if you can't figure out that getting on a stage and doing that you should just really be ashamed of yourself.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for checking me on that one, Michelle.
Yeah, that's just me
I agree
personally.
with you. Yeah.
And
I just
so,
like to give people the
yeah.
benefit of the doubt, because then I start, especially from a filmmaking perspective and an
Yes.
investigation perspective, I start with saying, hey, they have good intentions, because that's one thing that we say in the show. And we constantly say good intentions pave the way to hell. Just because you have good intentions doesn't mean they're justified or right. And
Right.
so, so I say, hey, you got good intentions, but they're going to pave the way to hell.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the problem. It's they're in a system that works for them. People do what works for them. So they're in a system. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that he should be believing and standing on that. It's just shamelessly. Like, that's what blows my mind. Shamelessly believing for an airplane, not for the children who don't have homes that are orphaned to have a family, not for, the widows to be fed, and taken care of and not have to worry about their medications being purchased. This isn't what this man is believing for. That's the kind of stuff that makes me just so angry. And these people, there's got to be people falling for it because they can stand on a stage and even say that stuff.
Yeah.
My favorite is, what is pure and undefiled religion? It's to help the orphans and widows in their distress. And then you look at Matthew 25, and I'm just the type of guy who likes to hang on Jesus's words for some reason,
Yeah,
and so
me
you see who he says to help, and you'll
That's
know them
right.
by their fruits. And if you're not helping, like, I get it. You have operating costs and overhead if you're going to run one of these institutions, but the model's in reverse. You're keeping 95 cents, 96 cents, 97 cents of every dollar for yourself and the machine. That model needs to be flipped. And so 97 cents should be going out, and then 3 cents of every dollar should be done, used for your operations. But it's when the paradigm is completely upside down, that's when reform happens. And so that's where we're at right now. The system is so broken and so flawed. And, in episode 1, my brother-in-law says it so perfectly. He goes, and he's a pastor. He goes, most people will preach from the pulpit a pretty decent message on Christ, and who he is and what he stood for. But then when your institution is the darkest, shadiest, profit-driven model there is, those two messages are antithetical to each other and they collide. And we're sitting at that collision point right now, where the message from the pulpit is running in polar opposite directions as the institution they're running. And so that's when people lose faith and lose trust in the institution. And so then it reforms. And so that's what's happening right now, is we're clicking into a reformation period.
Well, the other thing too that gets me is I have a saying that I say, I don't know if it's really, to me, it's true. And that is, people who hide things have things to hide. So when, when somebody has an issue with showing what, just like what you saw and you show in the docu-series a couple of different times where you gave a donation and you're like, well, look, I'm asking questions. I have the right to do that as a donor. And they're like, oh no, you're out. Look at what the guy did with the Kenneth Copeland stuff. That guy, boy, did you ever find out what was on his badge? What kind of badge was that?
No, it was just a Amazon badge. Like, he bought it off of Amazon.
He wasn't a credentialed.
Yeah, he did get fired. Yeah, but he got fired.
That's interesting. Okay, so my church here in Houston is in a lawsuit now. The pastor's son took over an unknown to the congregation. They took our vote away so that we have no say, and he has no accountability to us. Yet the church is paying for his legal expenses.
Is that Second Baptist?
My TZ, if you'll respond back, please. Producer Ron will pull it over. These are all chat questions in the live feed through Rumble. So Red Clay Lane also said that happened at our church. Also, a close friend passed away, and he asked for all of the donations to go to the Memory Garden Fund. The powers that be took that money and put it toward operation costs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's kind of stuff happens like that type of thing really happens a lot more
Mm-hmm.
than people would like to know.
Okay. Yeah. Rhonda says no need for 3 houses. Well, yeah, I can barely keep up with one. Philip said years ago, I went to a church where there was no financial accountability from the pastor. He bought as a party house from a mobster. Oh gosh, this is going bad. Spent the money recklessly and caused a huge scandal. And then part 2 to this is people at the church couldn't get a tax receipt, which raised suspicions. I'm sure. I don't think the mob guy gave a receipt, sweetheart.
Yeah, well, and that's actually a really interesting point. So
Yeah.
if the church can't give you a tax receipt, it means
Yeah.
they don't actually have 501c3 status with the IRS. So this is a fun additional loophole. So I can start a church tomorrow if I want to. I just need to file with the state, get an EIN number, and boom, I'm in business. I never have to file with the federal government actually to receive my tax exempt status, because the only benefit to that really is I can give out tax receipts. So if the church can't give out tax receipts, it means it doesn't even have its 501c3 status. But since I'm a church, just by me raising my hand and saying I'm a church, I am a church. And so that's what's so crazy with the nonprofit space and these religious exemptions is the IRS sometimes Phil Hackney says there's churches out there that we don't even know exist. We can drive by them and see their building, and we'll look at our paperwork, but they don't even exist on the 501c3 rolls. But they can have bank accounts, they can raise money, they can do whatever they want. So that's the real scam this whole thing is a scam in my opinion. But if I don't file for my 501c3 tax status, I can start raising money tomorrow. And so think of you have a big social presence. I can start taking donations and the IRS doesn't even know I exist. And until enough people go to the IRS and say, man, Nathan's scamming people, they don't know I exist. And then even to find me is difficult. And so it's just such a racket.
Yeah. So the thing about the 501c3 also, I've met with different people that have 501c3s that are ministries, and I've asked them, why do you do this? And they're like, well, because I need the 501c3 status so that I can get people to actually donate. They won't donate if there is no tax benefit. And so I always say to them, and I'm always reminded of this, and that is, well, show me where in the word of God that it says that thou shalt donate where thy can receive the biggest tax benefit. And so they always are quiet. And it's like, but for me, I'm like, well, why would you get into this system, this 501c3 system? We're talking about smaller people. Maybe somebody has a TV show, a Christian television show, and a ministry through that. And it's like, and I've had these meetings with people and talked with them about the 501c3 and said, are you not trusting God? So you're trusting the 501c3 system instead of trusting God, and so did God tell you to get a 501c3? They always say no. So
this is my fun one. Michelle, what is the one institution that Christ told to give to? Christ only ever said to give to one institution.
Which one?
Caesar.
Give to Caesar that which is Caesar's.
Yes.
And render to God that which is God's. So if Christ only told you to give to 2 things, Caesar,
right,
which technically is like, hey, pay your tax. If he's asked,
right,
like Christ he gave stories about that. Go to the river or the lake, and you're going to find a fish, and there's going to be a coin in its mouth. Pay our tax. And so it shows that, hey, whatever the government wants, like pay the taxes. And then he goes, given to God that which is God's. So here's my other question: who told your church to be the middleman and beneficiary of that gift to God. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that church, that institution, that corporation, that 501c3 has any right to collect that gift to God.
That's right.
They
And
position,
so-
yeah.
and you can
And-
make the strong argument Matthew 25 is the definition of giving to God, because
Correct.
Christ says, if you're doing this for all them, you're doing it for me,
Yep.
to the least of
So
these.
good.
Yeah.
That's right. All right. This has been amazing. We're going to have to have you guys come back to. I do want to ask both of you, in this process, what was a shocker for you? What was something that you were surprised to learn? Chris, we'll start with you.
There's so many, right? I mean, you like, because I came into this, Nathan had already been on this journey for over a decade before I joined him on this journey. So I was filled with like multiple aha moments, right? Like, wait, this is $1 trillion industry and they don't have to report anything to the IRS. Like, to me, that's like, just think about that. $1 trillion comes in, and it's the biggest black space that there is. And then this concept of how much money gets stolen internally. I mean, that's a massive amount. Like, you brought up the 40-something billion that goes to global mission impacts, and then you brought up that more than that is stolen
53.
internally
Yeah,
by church
53
staff. Right?
billion.
Yeah. And that number is almost twice as much now, as you'll learn in the show. Like,
Jeez.
those are for me like some of the biggest shockers. But like, literally, I've had probably 1,000 light bulb moments, aha moments in this 2.5 years I've known Nathan.
Okay, so Nathan, what was something where you were like, oh my goodness, this will be one of my shockers?
The whole journey's been, like, to Chris's point, is a shock. But if I could walk away with anything, it's my faith is my own. It's through the research. I've done 10 passes through the 66 book canon of the Bible. I've read the Apocrypha half dozen times. I've read a lot of the early apostolic writings, like the Didache. And one morning I woke up and nothing shocks me anymore in the system. But I woke up and I'm like, oh, my faith is my own. Like, I don't ever need to sit under someone and listen to their interpretation of the Bible anymore. Like, I understand the Bible to the best of my ability in this moment. I understand that, just like Paul says, we're going to wrestle with our theology till the day we die. But I have a very firm grasp on what faith is to me. And I think that was the most shocking thing to me, is I said, oh, for 30 years, I grew up in these institutions and my faith wasn't my own. Daniel Bramer says it the best in the show. He goes, you have faith in your faith in God, but you don't have faith in the God of your faith. Because if you have faith in the God of your faith, that's extremely dangerous. It means you have to literally pick up your cross every day. Because it means if you wake up and you got to sell your car and give it away to this cause or this homeless group or whatever, you're going to do it. Or if, hey, God's calling me to literally, there's a gun wielding guy in the corner and he's got 3 guns drawn on him. Nope, I'm going to walk up and actually talk with him. Like there's where God draws you is dangerous. And for those first 30 years, I had faith in my faith. I had faith in the institution. Like, I loved the big music, and I loved, the cute girls in the front row when I was a kid, and I'd go stand next to them. And it's like, I had faith in this tradition. Christ always says, in multiple gospels, he goes, what you call doctrine is just traditions and culture. You've taken your culture and you call it doctrine. And that's what we've done, is we've taken culture, which is these churches, these 501c3s, and we call it doctrine. We say, this is church. This is the gathering. And for 30 years, I bought that hook, line, and sinker. And through this journey, my most profound takeaway is, hey, my faith is my own. And I know I get closer to my Savior when I'm reading the Bible alone and I'm praying alone. And so that's my biggest encouragement to anybody, and Chris's as well, is, hey, read the Bible cover to cover alone. Do it multiple times. Like, pray. Like, just stay in prayer. Like, a lot of times now, I'll end on this, is like, I don't even know if I'm praying or just talking to God constantly now. I don't really listen to music anymore. I kind of just walk and talk to God. And that's the biggest takeaway, is nothing in the institution surprises me anymore. And we left a lot of things out of this 7-part docuseries because people wouldn't even believe it. From gun running on private jets to drug running to money drops into Cayman Islands to straight murder. Like, we have evidence of it all. And we pulled it because it was just it felt too Hollywood. that people wouldn't even believe these stories are true.
That's good to kind of help baby step. That may be a
Yeah.
future episode.
Yeah.
I will say I did also write this down, and my viewers would believe it. My viewers have the thumb on the pulse a little bit better. But your typical person wouldn't it'd be too much. But there was a point in one of the early episodes that I thought was very profound. Okay, that's the word that I would use, profound. And it was about the study that was done that Stanford University did a case study, the church, on the church, and it was like, okay, growth. It was the growth on impact on its members. So, okay, so what was it that impacted the members, the growth more than anything? And it ended up being not the church. It ended up being when people spend time alone reading the Bible and praying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that increases faith. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
very profound. I think so many people think they need a church and they need a pastor and they need all these things. And really what they need is just to be quiet, get in God's word and read and have that relationship. Remember I said to you that I call religion the R word. And so that I don't like, it's one of my, most disliked words. And it's because so many people get wrapped up in religion and they don't understand that we weren't created for religion. We were created for relationship, not only with him, but with one another as well. And if people would just remember some of these basics like that, it's life-changing and it helps you to stay focused on what actually God wants us to be focused on.
Yeah.
Amen.
The more you read the Bible and the more you connect with God and communicate with God, the more value you do add when you go into a gathering with people, when you do have church. I mean, in the business world, we'd have our executive, like in our executive huddles and meetings, and we'd say, "Hey, you're not here to just be like a consumer of information. We need people that are actively contributing. Be a content contributor, not just consuming." And I think we get over reliant on, we just go there to consume, and it's not this body working together to light up the body of Christ and have human flourishing.
Yeah, I read a book. I forget the name of it. It was the guy that ran the bookstore, Lifeway Christian Bookstore, and he wrote a book, and it was about the church. It was a real quick, easy read, but he talks about people going to church like a country club. If you see a light bulb that's out, well, then go find out where the light bulbs are kept and go change the light bulb. Like, that you're to give and to be part of, and not go to just sit down and expect to be served. But that's a whole nother thing. And so, but Doberman Mommy says, please have Nathan and Chris back. Very informative. And we can then take the info and research more. Let's see. Well, and of course you can go to the religionbusiness.com to be able to watch the 7-part docu-series. I want to make sure that you know that. My TZ did respond and said the son became a billionaire overnight, but I'm not seeing, producer Ron, if this was the church. Nathan, what was the name of the church you were asking?
Maybe it was Second Baptist in Houston.
Okay, was it Second Baptist? My TZ says the son also became a billionaire overnight. His dad built this church with many campuses. And
sounds like
sounds
Second
like
Baptist. Yeah, there's a lawsuit right now against, I don't like, it might be Second Baptist, but there's an open lawsuit from the congregants because they basically, the board in a back room, somewhere, basically just removed voting rights from the paying members, from the donating members. And so the members showed up on Sunday and they had no more rights. So they couldn't vote on salaries, they couldn't vote on anything. And, a lot of these people gave lots of money over their life, their life with this church. And then in a single board move, all those voting rights were yanked. And so that's what that was about.
My TZ says, yes, it is. So there you go. That was the church. All right. And then let's see, Christians called it to the early church, but let's see, the church system was predicated on Constantine's edicts and rulings for political control of the masses. Christians called it the early church, but it was actually based on the ancient Jewish synagogues.
Well, you're talking about 2 points there. You're talking about Constantine and then the Jewish temple system. We profile on the show Constantine heavily because it's when we say early church. So if you ever hear Chris or I talking about the early church, it's really from Christ's death and Pentecost until Constantine. because that was that early organism that had no real structure or hierarchy. It did
Yep.
start to form around 200 AD, but for those 150 to 200 years in that beginning, it was very organic, and it was this moving organism. I'll tell you right now, though, there's a bishop in like 110 AD, I think, and he wrote down, he goes, "Cling to my robe as you would cling to Christ." And so there's already this like power structure happening only decades after Christ's death, right? Because as soon as you, like, we all do this, I get it as well. And this is to give you guys encouragement. Like, Chris and I have a small group around us as we launch this show to check us, because we know that we have to be checked because we're humans. And it's like, as soon as you feel entitled and you feel authority, they cling to my robe as you would cling to Christ. And that is such a dangerous statement to make. And that
Yeah.
was made in 110. So that was when that early organic church was still like potently transforming Rome at the peak of persecution, really. But Constantine was the first to see the value in Christianity because Christianity was dangerous to Rome. And so he adopted Christianity because it could be a binder that held his fracturing empire together. Um, and that's what's fascinating with Constantine, is we're seeing the same thing happen again, but it's a reverse right now. So Christianity has lost its moral compass and its moral authority, because churches, like, this whole conversation has been about the loss of like the moral compass and moral authority in Christianity. So what do? You grab onto political power and try to shove it down everybody's throat via politics instead of being the church. And so as Rome was fracturing, it saw Christianity as a glue. So now Christianity sees politics as the glue that'll hold it together right now. So we call it the death rattle in the show. It's a cycle that happens through history. And when that happens, reform is coming, because, or you could see that reform is coming. And so that's why, the next few years are going to be very interesting.
Yeah, that's so good. All right. So, Chris, I wanted to ask you about the app, and then we're going to let you guys go. So, fill us in on the app that's available on thereligionbusiness.com. Who's it for? Who signs up? Help us understand
Yeah,
what the purpose is.
absolutely. So the show is talking about a massive problem, right? For those that have seen
Yes.
it, and then obviously just listened to us for the last hour and a half. And where do you go? Where do we go from there? Nathan and I didn't want to just talk about a problem and not have a solution. So let's start a solution. So the central nucleus, if you will, of the solution is that in Nathan's exploration of almost 15 years of the making of the religion business, discovered 10 loopholes within the system. Right? We talked about line items, housing allowances, salaries, to name a few.
Real
And
estate.
real
Mhm.
estate, and you can't have accountability without transparency. So it's a transparency portal, it's a donation portal, and it's a volunteer portal and an engagement portal as well too. So the nonprofits, there's 1.9 million of them in the United States. And then about 400,000 of them are religious, and then the rest are secular nonprofits, or there are 400,000 churches. So this 1.9 million gets pulled into our database. A nonprofit would then go in there and claim it and provide pertinent financial information, salary, revenue, top people salaries, pertinent information, answer some questions. We're not here to be the arbiter of what a pastor should make or not make, or someone running a nonprofit. We just want you to provide the info. We just want transparency there. So if you provide the info, your light rating, which is a transparency rating, goes up from 0 to 10 based upon how much they provide. And then you as the donor, the congregant, the member, can go in and take a look and see what their ratings are. And we will, they're lined up by rating, right? So you're like, hey, I'm in Tennessee on a vacation with my family and we want to go to church. You'd be able to go, okay, where do I want to go to in Tennessee to go to church? And then you're able to pop up and go, oh, okay, this one's got a 10 rating. They actually are doing great things in the community and providing local social capital to the community. And so you get to be educated to make that decision, because the power, we've heard over and over again on this call about all the power the board has. The body is the power, right? It's the same thing with our political structure. It's supposed to be. And so this will give you the power, the donor, to go, hey, be transparent and we'll donate to you here. If you're not transparent, I'm not going to donate to you. And then if you want to volunteer, there's volunteer opportunities as well too. And it's called Broken Shepherds for a reason, because we're broken. We're not the good shepherd. We are broken and we need accountability. You cannot have like, you can't walk in the like light, not, or walk in the darkness and say you're walking with God. God's light. Like, we all need that accountability. So that's the basis of it. And
How is that doing? How is that that whole program doing for you so far?
So it was a very soft launch for us. So we've got some secular nonprofits that have claimed their profile, and Nathan and I are working with our development team to automate some of the functions on the front end to make it easier on the once you claim your profile to get it to like get everything going quicker. And so we're working on that. That should be done by the end of this month. But we've only had one religious organization. It's called Vision USA. It's a home church group, and they have home churches all across the United States. They claim they were the first ones to claim their profile, and they're onboarding right now. And so one feature that we built into this is that any person on this call right now that has Broken Shepherds, and you can get it off our website, thereligionbusiness.com, or you can get it from Apple or Google Store. You'll have the ability to go in and start adding data to what you know of your church. So if you know your pastor's salary, if you know how much revenue they have, if you know how much they're spending on X, Y, or Z, you have the ability to go in and add it. Now, it's not verified data, but I think that's how religious organizations are going to start claiming their profiles is they don't want to provide this data, but their members want it provided, and they know some of the data. So it's until the members stand up, the body stands up and starts asking these questions and such, our platform isn't gonna do what it's intended to do. So members need to stand up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And then they'll want to take control.
Yeah,
They'll want to control their own.
The donors love it. You know, we like the people who have downloaded it to watch the show. It's a great app. And so we're just like Chris said, it's a soft launch. We're going to be, really building it out. Once the automation's done, then we're going to be pushing pretty hard to onboard churches and nonprofits. And we have a couple big denominations that are very interested in it. But our goal is in 2 years to have 10% of the nonprofit sector in this app.
Are all nonprofits 501c3s?
All secular nonprofits, yes. But churches don't have to they don't need the 501c3 tax status or exemptions to be a church. And so, no.
It's much easier to be a church.
Yes.
Yeah. But when you're a church, though, you still don't really have to be a 501c3. You can still not have to pay taxes.
Correct. Yeah. You can just be a church by you saying you're a church. And so that's because technically, because of, separation of church and state, it's the church can't or the government can't define what a church is, but the IRS has to kind of define it because of the 501c3 tax exemptions. And so that's what that 14-point checklist is. And that 14-point checklist story is much bigger than what we present in the show. And that's what we're really diving down on in the work we're doing right now. Because here's the deal. If early Christianity was that dangerous to Rome from a philosophical perspective and how it changed culture, it literally shifted Roman culture. It brought humanity from barbarism, which was, hey, let's go to the Colosseum and watch people kill each other and watch, Christian kids be thrown to wild animals and ripped apart by wolves for sport. Like, let's go from that barbarism to a Christ-centered life where you see value in human life. That's what it did to the Roman Empire. So what would true, authentic Christianity do to America today? It would eradicate homelessness overnight, because that means every church would only have to technically, I'll use the word adopt, 2 homeless people for homelessness to be eradicated. Every church would have to adopt less than 1 kid in the foster care system for the foster care system to be eradicated. So the real Christian church the U.S. would look radically different overnight if we were the true church. And then if the global church were the true church, the globe would look radically different. So Christianity is very dangerous. So is Islam. Islam, another radical religion, is very dangerous. So how does a government like America create a box to put these dangerous toys in, so to speak, to put Christianity, to put Islam, to put Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism in, to I will say, be controlled. Because that 14-point checklist whitewashes and dumbs down the danger of religion. It removes its teeth. Well, how are we going to get you to get in this box, Nathan? How are we going to get you, Michelle, to get in this box? Chris, how am I going to get you to get in that box? I'm going to offer you tax exemption. You don't have to pay taxes. Get in the box. So now we get in the box. We've dumbed down religion, whether that be Islam or Christianity, to a shell of what it is. And now that box can be moved and used however the government sees fit, whether that be right or left. And so religion isn't even religion anymore. Christianity is not Christianity anymore. And if true Christianity came out, it would be dangerous to the current structures that be and powers that be.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. Nathan, Chris.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
Now, the next time you come back, what that episode's going to be on is all the stuff that didn't make it because it was too controversial.
There's a lot there.
Maybe we strike up a deal and we go, okay, if we have at least 100 viewers that watch the docu-series, will you come back?
Well, of course we'll come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And tell the stuff that, didn't make it. that was just too much for regular folks, but the Michelle Moore Show viewers will want to see it.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for having us.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great rest of the day. All right. Don't forget the religionbusiness.com. You can see that also about the app. You can see the docu-series, all of that. I just downloaded it, paid for it, and downloaded it yesterday. It was super easy. And so within just a couple of minutes, I was watching the first episode and it was riveting. Let me just tell you, I'll be working on finishing it up tonight because it's so good. Let's see. So, and I learned so many things that you just don't even know. So I highly recommend it, highly, especially as believers. We need to know these things. And so, again, the religionbusiness.com. Okay. And we'll kind of go from there. I'll definitely follow up with them about having them back. And I wasn't kidding about hearing some of the things that they thought was just too controversial for most people. And y'all know what that means. And so let's see here. I've got my notes. I'm looking for my regular notes. So, okay. I want to remind you tonight, remember the announcement on Monday. So we've got Jay, who is now part of the Truth Talk America family. So you can watch Jay's show tonight. And of course, his guest tonight is Lieutenant Mark Taylor. So that'll be, I'm sure, a great show as well. And so he'll be on tonight with Jay. Now, just so you know, Jay's show is 1 hour. So you have an hour episode with him tonight. And so he airs Thursday night. So it's 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7 p.m. So Eastern. All right, so let's see here. Too many mega churches have exploited their donors. It's one of the reasons why I turned down being a pastor and started a church years ago. Philip Gray says over on YouTube. Kevin says, I thought this show was a documentary, so I missed it. It is a 7-part docu-series. So love this show so much. Thank you, Kevin. Michelle, the peach lip scrub hearts. Oh, good. I'm glad you like it. I guess you're talking about Godly Granny's lip scrubs and lip masks. They're the best for sure. And Philip says, thank you all. Thank you for watching. I hope that you all have enjoyed today's show. I want to remind you that tomorrow we've got Eve. I got to remind you two things. We've got Eve. She's going to be here. She's our Godly Granny formulator. I work with her all the time to make sure, what is our lineup and what are we going to be doing. So she's going to be here. We're going to be answering your questions. We're going to read some viewer reviews. We're going to talk about all different kinds of stuff. There's also some common questions we get. So I've asked her to be prepared to talk about those. And so we're going to do that. And we're going to go over a couple of the new resources as well. We got another resource that's going to be up on the website. I've been seeing where you guys are downloading them and printing them like crazy. And that's great because that's what they're for. They're for you. So I just, Eve, what do you think? What's something else that we need to educate our customers on? And so we do that. Also, I forgot to tell you. So when you go to godlygranny.com, at the upper left-hand corner where there's a drop-down menu, if you say products, there was like Fur Baby was in the drop down. Now there's a new one called bundles. So if you have a hard time finding the bundles, now it's going to show you. And don't forget, all bundles are always 5% off plus your coupon code. So you can always use Michelle 10 or Granny 10 to get 10% off additionally. So, but price already gives you 5% off when you buy a bundle. So, and there's more bundles coming. I've actually been working with Eve on that. And so that's one of the big reasons why I wanted to make sure that it's going to be easy for you guys to find it. So we'll be doing that as well. Woo! I got to tell you, there was so much in this docu-series we didn't even get to. But I have to tell you, I didn't know there was stuff that didn't make it onto the show. And so I'm going to have to check into that and get the scoop for us and have them back. So for sure. So I'll definitely follow up on having them back. And I haven't finished the last 2 episodes, so I'm sure I'm going to have plenty to want to talk with them about anyways. One of the other things that they had that they cover in one of the episodes, it was actually loophole number 6. I'll tell you about this too. So it was loophole number 6, and it's called Conventions and Associations. So there is ARC, A-R-C, and it's called the Association of, I think, Related Churches. And so what happens with ARC, now this was like, are we in the MLM? Like, what's going on? So the pastor wants to plant a church, okay? ARC matches 50%, or 50, it says 50,000 at the thing, but I think he means 50%. So half of what it would cost to start up the church has to raise. And then ARC, this association of related churches, is going to give them the pastor the other half, okay? All right, but here's the kicker. So the church, when they start collecting tithes and paying the bill, they pay that back. That 50% is a loan. Okay. All right, sounds good. I guess, if somebody wants to start a church in their community and needs help, I mean, that might be a great option. But I started suddenly thinking maybe I'm watching Shark Tank, because once you've paid back the loan, are you ready for this? There's a 2% giving perpetuity per year. I'm like, where's Mr. Wonderful when you need him? And so what that means is, let's say that you raise, let's say you have $1 million in tithes and tithes for the year. So what happens is 20,000 goes to ARC, but you've already paid your loan off. Doesn't matter. It's perpetuity, 2% every year. It just keeps on going and going and going. And so this is how the church is being set up. And so I thought that was very interesting. So like I said, all right. Now, also for tomorrow, I want to remind you, we're going to be giving out 3 Orange-Aganzas. So y'all are like, what's Orange-Aganza? Well, Orange-Aganza has an orange, First Fruits orange deodorant. It has the bath bomb. It has the bar soap. Look at this bath bomb, 6.5 ounces. It has the face and body orange balm. And it has look at this, the bath salts. This is dreamy, y'all. I love them. And then we also have the balm in a tube, the travel tube, great for your purse, your gym bag. And then also I got to thinking, and I was like, what else have I got orange? And so we have the bath bomb. That's the bergamot orange. I love this bath bomb. And then also we have the lip scrub and the sweet orange. Okay. So all of this, we're giving away 3 sets of this. So we're going to give them away. How do I enter? Do not email me, because that's not how you're going to do it. You have to be signed up for the free Truth Talk America newsletter. So if you're already signed up, don't worry about it. If you are not signed up, you got to get signed up. So here's how you sign up. You go to truthtalkamerica.com, and on the home page of the website, you're going to see an eagle. Look for the eagle, and it says, you can sign up here for the free newsletter, and you're going to click on the button. And I think you put in your first name, maybe your last name, and then you're also going to put in your email address. Okay. So we send out a free newsletter once a month. We're never going to sell or give away your list, so don't worry about it. You're not going to, your email address or whatever, it's just for us. And so Truth Talk America newsletter comes out on the first Saturday of every month. And so all you got to do is be subscribed, because I'm going to the subscriber list tomorrow, and I'm picking 3 winners. So you got to be signed up for the newsletter in order to win. And we will be announcing the 3 winners for Orange-Aganza tomorrow. That's all you got to do, is just be signed up for the newsletter. You don't have to email me. You don't have to send me anything. We will contact you, and we'll be announcing the winners tomorrow on the show, of course. But we'll contact you, and because we'll have your email. See how it works? And then we'll say, hey, you won Orangeganza, one of the 3. And so please send us your shipping address and all that kind of stuff, and we'll send everything to you. So fun. I'm so excited. Producer Ron says we've already got some new people signed up for the newsletter, so that's great. Rhonda says, I want it, Michelle. I know, right? Isn't it just dreamy? I love it, love it, love it. Okay. And I put them together, so of course, but the orange, all of our orange stuff just smells so great. The lime does too. Somebody said to me at some point, they got a product and they said, something doesn't smell right. Maybe it's just because I'm used to everything smelling so great. And I said, if it doesn't smell good, something's wrong, send it to us and we'll replace it. And sure enough, there was something wrong. We've had that happen a couple of times. We've sent it back to the fulfillment and had them look at it to see what's going on and test it. And sometimes it just needs to be stirred up. It's just for one reason or another, ingredients somehow got separated. But if something doesn't smell just dreamy, then something's off, because all of our products smell absolutely amazing. That's a big deal. All right. I'm going to see you tomorrow with Eve. We're going to be doing the 3 Orangeganzas. Make sure that you are eligible. I'm not picking the winners until about 2:00 tomorrow, Central Standard Time, so about an hour before we air. So that way, everybody has a chance. If you're watching the re-air tonight, tomorrow, whatever, I want you to know it's not too late. Just sign up for the newsletter, truthtalkamerica.com. All right, we'll see you right here next time on The Michelle Moore Show. Hi, friends. It's Michelle Moore. And when it comes to protecting your retirement, I believe in taking smart, steady steps. Bank of America analysts call gold the ultimate safe haven. And when it comes to precious metals, I trust Universal Coin and Bullion, the official rare coin and bullion dealer of my show. They have been named the best in their industry, both nationally and regionally, by leading organizations. Consider a gold IRA, a time-tested way to diversify your portfolio with real tangible assets, which lets you move a portion of your retirement savings into physical gold, helping protect your wealth from inflation, market swings, and economic uncertainty. And Universal Coin and Bullion makes the process easy. From rollovers to delivery, they walk you through every step, even if you have one with another gold company. Protect what you've worked so hard to build from the team that I trust, Universal Coin and Bullion, at 800-321-8700, and make sure to tell them Michelle sent you.
Toxic chemicals are everywhere, even in products we've used for generations. Now there's a replacement solution, Godly Granny. Godly Granny products are nutraceutical, clean products with purpose. All our products like skin creams, bath bombs, lip scrubs, deodorants, and more are free of the Godly Granny 5 Dirty Dozen list. That's 60 harmful chemicals many other companies use that you'll never find in our products. Go to godlygranny.com today. Be sure and use the discount code Michelle10 at checkout to receive 10% off your entire order.
Trying to get healthier is full of can'ts.
Come on, Grandma, come play. Come play with us, Grandma.
I can't move. So you go to the doctor.
Your body can't figure this out. So take this, and this.
Because your body can't. But is it true your body can't? Maybe your body can. All you need is a little support. Wave Watch is a wearable device that uses sound wave therapy to help your body heal itself. Studies are showing that all cells in our bodies resonate at unique frequencies, and specific sounds can stimulate them. Your body can deal with pain, so you can play hard.
WaveWatch comes with a 1-year manufacturer's warranty for defects and flaws, and you can upgrade to an additional warranty for water damage and breakage. Go to WaveWatch.com. Be sure to use the discount code Michelle100 at checkout to receive $100 savings on your purchase.
For Michelle's social media links, go to MichelleMooreShow.com.